Hi, I'm Lyman, and I'm here with my good friend, Miles. We have no Marcel today. I got my buddy Miles with us to do the Jazz and Grass and Other Stuff Too podcast.
Hey, yo, everybody. It's good to be here. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, glad to have you back. I was hoping Marcel was going to be here with you this time, but not today.
Someday we'll cross paths. It will happen. People, believe me.
I am trying so hard to make this happen, but not today. One thing, if you would like to call or text us, the number you can reach us at is area code 724-257-1046. That's area code 724-257-1046.
Gotta make those calls, people.
And I don't know if I actually got the number right. I was reciting it from memory. 724-257-1046. Oh, boom. Got it.
See,
got him.
Someone else is not going to get these messages. Don't worry, people. You can send them in. It's going to be great.
Yep. Call or text. And actually, cool thing. This week we had our very first write-in. Somebody wrote us in.
Ooh.
And unfortunately, that means I have to read out loud.
Get ready, people.
It's not good. But we received a message from Peter M. It says, "Hey guys, love the podcast. A suggestion I have would be maybe start a discussion groups similar to Effectively Wild, a baseball podcast fan group. I actually love baseball. I haven't listened to much Effectively Wild, but I'm definitely going to start for sure. I could see that group posting their own clips and discussions about topics. Yeah, that's something we would love to do. We don't know if we have enough interest. So I think what I'll do this week is put up a poll in the description of the episode and see how many people we get to respond about a discussion group on Facebook. It'll have one topic. Just click yes and then submit. I'll figure it out. I've never done this before, but it shouldn't be too hard.
So you're gonna want to jump on that, people.
And then he also has a question. A question I have is, I've been a bluegrass and jazz bass player for a long time, but now I'm trying to focus on guitar. As both of you made the transition, what did you find most helpful in learning how to think like a guitarist? And maybe some exercises just not to play walking bass lines when playing lead. That's a very good question. As a guitar player, like primarily, Miles, are there anything you notice like from bass player converts that you hear? Like just any general sort of things?
It's interesting. It's not something you hear as often, and you are definitely, you're an interesting example. But I guess, let me think. I guess the biggest thing to wrap your head around is really making sure your mindset is there. Because it's just like, we all know what it sounds like when a guitar player plays a bass that doesn't actually play bass, And it's just like, the more I think about it, maybe the opposite could be true if we went the other way around. And I guess my best advice would really be to like, even though it's not like an exercise per se, but I do think it is wise to take some time to just think about the function of your instrument, what you're trying to achieve on it. It's like, all right, how do I want to play the guitar? Because these instruments, especially the guitar, I would argue about the electric guitar and the acoustic guitar, but especially the electric is like maybe the most expressive instrument ever made. Like that and maybe a few other things. But it's really, the potential is like limitless on the electric especially. So it's really, I feel like having a clear vision, or at least just some idea of like just sort of what you want. It helps me, at least in my mind's eye. And it helped me, especially early on, to just find a few players like, all right, these people sort of like flow like I want and sound like I want. So I want to get my mind more towards what they're doing, because the guitar is like more than the bass. Its function is ambiguous. It could be rhythm, it could be lead, it could be so many things. So it's like, I feel like each individual's approach to how they want to just think about it and how they want it to function, that will guide you more than a lot of other things, I think.
Yeah, thanks for saving me, because I just threw the ball in your court and threw you under the bus.
Man, I thought you were going to take it too. See, this guy, he plays bass like crazy, and now he plays guitar like crazy.
I had to think of a exercise or a concept real quick, so I just sort of threw the ball at you so I could come up with something.
Oh no, good. See, now you can give him something more solid.
Yeah, take this chord progression right here, D minor 7 to G7. Like as a bass player, like converting to guitar, I would think of like sort of this as like my starting line. Starting on the root of that D minor chord and sort of playing like a scale or run or an arpeggio. And those things are cool. They're fine. But one exercise I would do is sort of do that sort of thing on all of the scale degrees. So D minor 7. You have a B note real close to there. Another, like just starting from the third of each note on the chord to create a line, starting from the fifth, starting from the seventh, even starting from the 9. Started on the 9 of the D minor chord, third of the G7, and then I played a C major and on the third of that. You could target the 5s of each chord. Something like that. Starting on the 7s of each chord as well. Something like that. Also taking like upper structure voicings, like something like that coming out of this D minor 7 drop 2 voicing. Adding alterations and extensions. Even just some things like triad pairs over like D minor 7. You can use like F major and G major. So yeah, those are a few like starting places that helped me make the transition. Starting lines on each different, like, note in a chord, and trying to resolve to certain different chord tones in a chord, and just pulling straight out of other voicings, like I use that line all the time.
Oh, that's my new favorite. I've just started doing that. Oh man, I can't stop doing it. I've been trying to find every way to play that. Oh my god, obsessed with it.
I've been doing that a lot in like melodic minor.
Oh yeah, it's so cool to find places to do it, especially if you can find sort of an interesting place to put it and catch them off guard. It's like, yeah. But those are all really good exercises. That is the way to do it right there.
Yeah, I hope that made, some sort of bit of sense, Peter. But yeah, let me know if that helped you out or not, and I'll get Marcel to give you some bluegrass advice when he gets back as well. But thank you so much for writing in. That was exciting for us.
Mm-hmm. I feel honorary excitement.
Now it's time for one of our reoccurring segments. What am I drinking out of? I don't have Marcel here to narrate what I'm drinking out of, so I'll do my best. This is a Magic Bullet cup. It's of course plastic because my wife will not allow me to have glass. It doesn't have one of those thread covers, so I get to put my lips all over the threads and can even bite it with my teeth. Just hold it with my face. And it also has a handle, and it's got a little bit of schmutz on it. That's like from the sticker that we peeled off when we probably bought this from like Goodwill or something. So that's what I'm drinking out of this week. What are you drinking out of? Are you drinking out of anything?
Oh no, I ain't drinking out of nothing. I don't get a schmutz glass. I'm not as lucky.
Oh man. So, yeah, should we actually like get into the meat of what we're actually going to talk about today?
I mean, I think we should do it. We might as well. Let's get to it.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about the trials and tribulations of gear, new gear, new to you gear, gear that doesn't work so good sometimes. Yeah, like I have a gear guru in this world, and that would be Miles. He's a wealth of knowledge on like finding exactly what you need to create the sound you want, and he's been a huge help in my journey through electric guitar. So how about you take it away, Miles? Just give like a little overview of like what you're playing on right now.
Oh yeah. Well, I can't actually. Before I say any of that, I think I should take a minute to say like, gear is an interesting subject, especially in the way that we're going to talk about it, or at least I will. Is that I feel like some of the things I believe are a little more to the contrary of what it seems like a lot of people do. But for me, my feeling on gear can come back to one moment, and maybe some of you jazz fans out there also have seen this video. There's an amazing video of Michael Brecker giving a clinic at a college, and he plays drums in the video, and it's amazing. But that's not the point. But at one point, he's talking about tone, and he's talking about how essentially before he was famous, people would tell him that, he was playing on the wrong saxophone, or he shouldn't be using the things he was using, and he just didn't care. And then at that point in time, everyone was then trying to copy his sound. And what he said was, you need to follow your sound no matter what people say. And that is my number one philosophy with gear is, if you want something, don't let other people say you're wrong. Or if like you feel in your heart, it's like, I want this sound, when it comes down to it, everything is different. And to say that, it doesn't matter, you can pick up any guitar or any bass and just be the same. It's like, yes, you can play like yourself, but like to play like your best self, you want to be comfortable. It doesn't have to be nice per se or super fancy. It just has to be comfortable for you. And it's surprising to me with gear how much it's like, because my gear I'm using right now, it ranges from, say, like the things I like the most actually are probably the inexpensive things that I have, which is funny. But yeah, my main thing about gear is that always be searching for something that will work for you, and don't let people dissuade you from that. But also like research is good, and we live in an age where you can like double check things. So it's like if you're interested in something, I always look up whatever it is in problems, like in Google, and that will tell you. Like there are so many things I didn't buy because it's like you look it up in problems, and it's like, oh well, like X amount of people said this consistently has this problem, so now I know I was about to waste like $70 or whatever, And then vice versa, when you're looking at something, you find a deal, you're like, ooh, what's this pedal? What's this little guitar? And you start looking it up. And it's like, oh, this is a deal. This is steel. Everything about this is rock solid. It's like, I feel like gear is more about like lining up how much money you have with like sort of what works for you. Because like there's always something that will line up at that point somewhere. You just have to look hard enough for it. And it's like, it feels so overwhelming at first, the idea of like trying to find gear and find a sound. Like I was overwhelmed at first, so much so. But then the more research I just started doing into like equipment, you start to realize like, okay, everything's just a function. And like, especially with the guitar, it starts at the guitar. That's the beginning of like the circuit. And then whatever you go through on your pedal board, any pedals, anything between the guitar and whatever interface or amplifier you're using, that's part of it too. It's like everything leads up to a response and a sound. And I think you have to think about it that way, or start thinking about it as soon as possible, like the whole picture, because you essentially create your own guitar. Like everyone has a different guitar, because your guitar isn't just your guitar. It's your guitar plus your amplifier and your pedals, whatever. And that equals you, or whatever your specific sound is. And I think that's the coolest part. But anyway, right now for me, I just, I play a Eric Johnson Stratocaster that I've modified a little bit, but not much. And it's pretty much just like a normal Strat at this point. And oddly enough, the thing I've learned in the past few years, really like playing in different bands, is that now like above anything else, when it comes to gear, it's like having a guitar you feel comfortable with is always number one. Like more than the amplifier, more than anything else, it's like you need to feel comfortable and play your best. And that is something that I think is easy for people not to chase, or like, it's amazing how much we can accept the way things are sometimes and then find out like, oh, I was playing on this guitar for years and this was broken, or this thing was broken. And it's like, that's fine. But also it's like trying to really make sure that you're able to play comfortably and all that stuff. Like that is key first for me now, because you won't be able to play for a long time if you're not comfortable. It'll catch up to you every time. But for me, the beauty of guitar is that like more than the amplifier or whatever interface you're using, I think your guitar plus any pedals you have in between that, or like a computer or whatever, it's like that is your weapon. And that is what makes guitar amazing, is that like if you have something reliable that is not even an amplifier, like before it hits the amplifier, you know that you can process your guitar in a way that you like, and all you have to do is be hitting like some sort of canvas. Essentially, that's what the amplifier is. It's just a canvas, and everything else manipulates what's happening. And to me, that is really important. And so I come from a little more analog standpoint, and Lyman has probably a lot more better advice for using things with like computers and stuff. But for me, in analog equipment, I try to like with guitars and pedals, ideally you want to have less pedals than more, like no more than 6 pedals in a row, or else you're going to start having problems for sure. And ideally, you want to have some.
Could you explain some of the problems that would happen with 6 or more pedals?
And this is the crazy part. And I've tried all sorts of things like buffers and all this stuff, because if you want to play, especially if you're playing jazz or anything really dynamic, you want to have clarity, and you want to be able to change your volume and tone a lot and get a lot of textures. And if you have a lot of pedals in a row, you start losing your tone, because it's like, even if a pedal is true bypass, it's going through, it still has to pass through that. And I would encourage all of you to do this and experiment and see how good your ears are, is plug straight into an amp and play, and then put one pedal in between and play again. And you'll feel immediately like the response is different, because I think it's the resonant peak is shifted. And the more you add pedals, it like shifts the resonant peak, I believe, and other things. It's very fascinating. It changed the way it feels too. And at a certain point, when you add so many pedals, it starts to sound muddy or not good. And we live in an age where it's like on Reverb right now, you can get an 8-channel switcher like for $100. And it's like, you just have true bypass loops. And the thing is, for someone like me, I play in a band with, a lot of horns and a keys player and all this stuff. So it's like, if things are getting muddy, I'm gonna have problems, and the music's not gonna be as good. And I know it's like when you can clean up your path and make it have as little things in the way as possible going into whatever going in, whenever it's possible, you'll always have better sound, and it'll always be more clear and true. And that's something that, it's like, nowadays there's more awareness of it, but it is something to be aware of. It's like, because again, you're like building your own instrument. That's the challenge of like using pedals and stuff.
On that note, a little bit, like I would recommend, like, this isn't something I've ever done, but like just to try it out, I would plug in your guitar directly into your interface or whatever, and look at it through a spectrum analyzer, and then plug it into a pedal, and then bypass it and look at it through a spectrum analyzer.
That would be the best way to do it for sure. And it's fascinating. Even there's a few like not necessarily on like pedals in a row, but there's a few videos on YouTube that I've found of people putting things through spectrum analyzers or doing certain things with like tone pots and stuff. It's really fascinating stuff. Like that is, if you're ever really curious, doing stuff like that will reveal just so much about the guitar to you. It's not even funny. It's fascinating. But yeah, as far as all right, I'll be more concise this time, and I'll just give the quick analog spiel. If you're going to play guitar and you want to have the clearest analog sound, quote unquote, this is my advice. And this is, in my anecdotal experience, what I find is that, again, switcher is key. And I've tried buffers, and I personally, I have something that I think is better than a buffer now. And it's a pedal, and it's called, it's essentially like a Echoplex preamp. And it just adds a little bit and boosts it a little bit in a way that I've never experienced in another pedal. So this isn't really the best advice, except for if you're curious, try. There's a lot of Echoplex type booster pedals, and Dunlop even makes one that's around like $100, I think, or something. And things like that are better sometimes than just a buffer, because sometimes buffers, they interact with things oddly sometimes. But then anyway, you want, at least, if you don't want to use a buffer and you want to keep the response kind of normal, you just want to have a switcher, and then maybe in that switcher, maybe even have a pedal that's an always on pedal. And there's all sorts of things that are really great for that now, but especially like these Echoplex type ones, I've had pretty great experience with that now. It's really like, I'll never go anywhere without it. Like that is the one pedal that I will never ever be without. And I would have never expected that, but it is. It's like, I feel much more comfortable playing guitar, and you can shape the tone just a little bit. But beyond that, I just believe that amplifiers are a pain in the butt, and that's just life. Like, it doesn't matter what kind, whether it's solid state, whether it's got tubes in it. I've seen everyone's amp break. Everybody, every single person, their amps all break. So
my bass amp broke.
Yeah,
you were on that gig.
Yep, I've seen his bass amp break, and I've seen the bass player after him saw his amp break like 5 times. 2 different amps even, now that I remember. So it's like the reality of being a gigging musician, and then especially if you're going to gig, it's like things are going to break. And that is something that is, again, and we'll get more into that's the struggle. And I've had a hard struggle, and I know Lyman's had struggles too. It's like you have to start accounting for the idea that things probably can and will break. And as much as you can be attentive in like mitigating some of that, your life will be better. Like little things you can do to just take care of things, or like whatever. Because when things break and you're on the gig, as I'm sure probably some of you even experienced, it's like, it's the worst thing in the world. Like the other day even, I turned on my amplifier. We're at the gig this weekend, and at first, like, didn't make any sound. And it's like, that is the worst feeling in the world. And to some extent, it's like you have to choose when you're playing amplifiers, or when you're a guitarist, you have to choose. Someone like Lyman is a little smarter and more forward thinking than I am. And he uses a laptop a lot of the time, I believe. And that is the best way, especially people today. It's like, that is a much quicker, easier, cheaper way. You can get a lot of things from that, and it's reliable. It's always going to be the same. It's like, those are huge pros that I do not have in my life. But it's also, it's just different sounds, different spokes, different folks. That's the fun part about guitar, right? It's all different. But making that choice is important, and trying a few things, like try things in your computer, try a solid state amp, try a few different tube amps and see what you like, because I feel like people just like different things. And I like it's like, it doesn't even, I generally like tube amps, but it's like, I can think of plenty. I mean, I played through Lyman's laptop and it was great. It sounded amazing and I had loads of fun. And, I've played through plenty of solid state amps, and really more than anything, if you're at home, you can just get, and the one other caveat I would say is with gear is if you're not gigging, you get to have a whole different mindset. And there's a lot of things you don't have to worry about. Because if you're gigging, your worries change completely. But if you're not gigging, get whatever you want. And as long as it sounds good and you take care of it, like, you're probably not going to have problems in general. Until I gigged, I didn't have problems. But then the second I gigged, I had all the problems in the world. Mm. But, do you have anything to chime in?
Yeah. There have been a ton of times where my stuff didn't work. And I'm a little bit of a moron. So at every single gig, without fail, there is always one thing I forget to plug in. My amplifier power cable, my speaker cable from the amplifier to the cabinet, my cable from the guitar or bass to the amplifier, the cable from the amplifier to the guitar or bass. I can't tell you how many times before a gig I've been just trying to make sound, and the cord is just sitting on the floor.
Yep.
But there have been times where there was actually a problem. So just always check your bases, like, keep your cool. Maybe you forgot to plug something in, but like, if you're mid song and something goes out, then you can enter panic mode just a little bit.
Yep. And funny story, for like probably the first 2 years, I want to say, that I was performing, without fail, like every other gig, I would plug in my pedal board backwards, because in my bedroom, I would play facing my amplifier. When you play on stage, you're not facing your amplifier. So in my mind, I plugged it in the same way. And it would be like, we would be like moments away from the show and we're all freaking out. And I'm like, oh my God, nothing's happening. There's no sound. And then, one of the other people in the band would look at it and be like, you haven't plugged in backwards. And that happened multiple times. So how did I remedy it? I didn't practice facing my amplifier anymore. I wasn't even smart enough to just like not do it. I had to stop practicing that way, because I knew I'd always do it. I would never stop. So do with that what you want. But see, that's the funny part about gear and all this stuff. It's like you have all these weird moments like that you have to learn this little stuff that all adds up, like making sure you plug everything in the right way, or you don't forget to plug in at all. It's like, it's that stuff is, especially in the beginning, there's a lot of things like that you just have to like learn and trip over, and that it's not always alluded to before you really get into this world of like playing and equipment and trying to find sounds and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. And once you bring a PC into the equation, that's an entire new point of failure, multiple points of failure. Your interface can fail. Your PC could fail. The hardware could fail. The software could crash. The software could fail. And though, like, if you're gonna run a laptop rig, I would account for all problems. Like, I don't know, induce a crash in your software and see how quickly you can get it back up again without causing too many, terrible cracks or pops through the mains. Just have all your bases accounted for. Because there are like, I feel like 3 or 4 gigs where my laptop rig failed when I was playing with Miles, and I was able to get back like within a song. Just account for failure, because things are going to go wrong.
Definitely. And I always, without fail, I pretty much troubleshoot things before, and I have a string of gigs in a row. It's like, if I have a weekend of gigs, or it's like, all right, I have a gig coming up and it hasn't been a while, like I will plug everything in just once and just make sure it all still works and it's fine. Because it's like, you don't want to get there and find out it doesn't work. And even though it's sometimes the pain in the butt, like sometimes you'll be glad you spent that moment to check, because it'll be like, oh, this is broken, or like, oh, this seems to be not working, or this changed. So I'm glad I noticed that. Like the amount of times I've been glad that I double checked, and then the times that I didn't double check and wish I did, it's like sometimes it's good just to make sure you're periodically checking that everything is, you can just set it all up quick and it works, and it's like, all right, cool. And one other thing I was thinking about too, and I'm actually sort of curious what you'd feel about this. We might not agree on this, but maybe we will. And I want to phrase this the correct way. The other thing about guitar you have to think about is, for me, like I've spent a lot of time adjusting guitars and like really feeling the difference between different strings, different scale lengths, different magnets, different outputs, different amplifiers. It's like the way it affects the feel and the relationship of the guitar is all very fundamental, all those pieces. And one thing you have to ask yourself as a guitar player, and that I feel like a lot of people aren't privy to, maybe in my generation as much, is that like different types of sounds are different in the room. And it doesn't, one sound is not better than the other. It's just being aware that there are differences between like playing through a valve amplifier, playing through a solid state amplifier, and playing through a laptop, and the way all three of those will sound in a room. It's like better or worse is subjective, but like different. And the way they relate to you and the way it responds to your playing, that's different. And people have different preferences, and there are different situations in which you would want different things. I'm realizing that myself more than ever now. It's like the tool for the job, or like what you're going for. But understanding that, like, if I were to, like, for someone like me, I know I would have the trouble jumping to all digital equipment for the way I play and the things I do, just because of the way I am. But in a certain group and scenario, I could do that and it'd be fine. But like I do come from a slightly more like traditional guitar background, and it's like that reaction of like a tube amplifier turned up to a certain extent. It's like once you experience that, it is difficult to go back. And it's also a physical presence in the room. And that's what you also have to decide. Nowadays, it's like guitar is not always supposed to be that, though. It's like maybe you want to be more textural. And that's the beauty of guitar now, is there's people making better textures than guitars ever dreamed of, and it blows my mind. Like the sounds we can get with a guitar, just 6 strings. And all we used to be able to do is have like an acoustic. And now we can like make it sound like we're in another universe, like with a strum like that. And it's just all about making sure like, just being aware of the differences and keying out on what you want. Because I've definitely had times where I wasn't aware of those differences and I wasn't getting what I wanted just because I wasn't aware of them. And I've seen other people have the same problem. Like, oh man, you should be playing this. Or like, oh man, you should plug in a laptop. Oh, you need to get a little Blues Junior. Like, I don't know. Everyone needs something different. And it's just, I feel like with gear, it's good that you build over time, but the more you can just sort of ask yourself earlier on, like, what do I really want to do? What do I want to do in music, and how do I want it to sound, like that, and let that really guide you as to what you need, and just work in little steps. Like, all right, start with a guitar that, like, I'm also a big fan of like upgrading. Over the year, I feel like I've upgraded. I started with a cruddy little Fender amp, and then eventually I got bigger amps and that are better. And I started with a cruddy guitar, and slowly you find out what you like, and then you save up enough or play enough gigs. It's like, but I always made sure I was honing in on what I wanted, and I wasn't getting stuck with something that didn't work for me at all. Because I don't know, I cannot stress that enough. Like making sure because if something doesn't work for you, if you're not inspired to play music, there's no point. And like I've played instruments that make me just want to throw it, and then I've played you play other ones and it doesn't even have to be nice, but it's like you want to play it all day. I can't tell you the amount of like weird little guitars I've played at people's houses or like in a weird pawn shop or something, and it's like, but it's awesome and you don't want to stop playing it. I don't know. That's really important. Just wanting to play. Anything you can do to want to play, that's my other thing. I know I've just sort of gone on, but that is something I'm trying to do more too, because it's like, especially with guitar, just about every little piece is like also stored somewhere in your mind. Like when you look at like a Stratocaster, it'll make you feel a certain way. Like whether you like it or not, if you're playing through a certain type of thing, it's like things are going to get in your mind and you conjure things. Like if you play on different guitars, you'll play a little differently because they just bring different things out of you, or different pedals, different amps. It's like being aware of that and like what something brings out of you and what you want brought out of you, that is an interesting thing too, because it starts to form your identity as well. Kind of.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just wanted to really like quickly run through the gear I use.
Oh yeah.
for better or for worse. I've got 3 guitars that I like to play. The first one is a Squier Stratocaster classic vibe with flat wounds on it. And I absolutely love the guitar. I spent a lot of time fiddling with it, getting the action just right. I like the neck. I don't particularly like the pickups, but because I run a digital setup, I can do some interesting things to the EQ to make it sound the way I want it to sound. One of the other guitars I play is a Oscar Schmidt OE40, and I like the name of that guitar because it reminds me of Old English 800. Shout out to the drinking days. But that's a full hollow body arch top. It's got a super flat neck, humbuckers, and it's very broken. It's a very just shoestring budget guitar. I picked it up for $120. The ground wire came unsoldered, so I came up with a little solution to take just a little bit of copper wire and tie it to one of my tone pots, and then tie that wire around the tailpiece, which I think is ground. I don't know. But that sort of mitigated the hum I got from the grounding issue. And I just got a new guitar. I wanted to talk a little bit about it. It's the one I have in my hands right now. It was gifted to me by 2 wonderful people, Glenn and Yvonne. If you're listening, I still cannot put this thing down. I was at a rehearsal playing bass, and I was just eyeing this guitar. It has pickups on it that you can't see the pole pieces, so they look kind of like lace sensors, which one of my heroes, Chris Crocco, plays on. He plays on lace sensors. So I asked
lace
Glenn
sensors
about
are the bomb. So good. They're so cool.
I asked Glenn about the pickups, and he kind of gave me the spiel on the guitar. It's an Ibanez Roadstar II, and it's kind of like the Ibanez version of a Strat. It's got the Strat pickup configuration. They're single coil pickups. It's only got 1 tone knob, and it's got a little switcher that I'm pretty sure it inverts the phase of the middle pickup, which is really cool. And I primarily play out of 2 amplifiers, a Ampeg PF350 bass amp through a Hartkey 410 cab for larger stuff, and for smaller stuff, I play out of a PV micro bass that I got for $20. I just wanted to say, before we recorded a podcast 2 weeks ago, Marcel said, "Lyman, I think you might be cheap to a fault." To which my response was, "Thank you, that means a lot to me."
That's Lyman I know right there.
But the one thing I did want to talk about is my plugin chain, what I've got going on as far as the plugins I'm using to get the sound that I have. For better or for worse, I like this sound. And I'll show you how I get it. And hopefully I'll put a little, here so I can remember. Dummy, you gotta automate the plugins turning on and off. This is the clean signal. That's one configuration. This is another pickup configuration. Here's another. Here's another. And here are the middle three with the phase inverted. Tone all the way off. Tone back on. So I usually always start with a compressor just to kind of get the volume a little bit more even and bring the sound up to where I want it to be. So this is my signal after the compressor. And then I usually have just like a tiny bit of drive. This is with and without. I think the drive plugin use has a pre-band pass filter. But in addition to that, I usually will have a pre-drive equalizer. This is without the pre-drive equalizer. This is with, and I'll usually have a post-drive as well. And that's pretty much the meat of how I get my sound. I do have two plugins at the end of the chain. The first one being a cabinet simulator. I'm using convolution reverb to take an impulse response of pink noise, which is full spectrum, simulated through an actual guitar cabinet and a microphone to kind of create a certain, like, try to make it sound like it's coming out of a cab. So here's the process signal before cab simulation. Here's the process signal after. And just for comparison, I'll play the clean signal before. And here's the clean signal after cab. How does that sound to your ears, Miles?
Oh, from what I can hear, it sounds nice. I like hearing the plugins come in and out. You have to understand, people. This dude, he has it dialed. He dials these plugins real nice, and it's I can hear it. It's every additional layer adds a little more movement, a little more sweetness, a little more focus, and it's like I love it because hearing you break this down, it's very similar to what I'm doing, just with pedals and just differently. It's like we're both just trying to add. He's viewing the whole thing. And every little piece adds together to that whole of like what you're trying to achieve. Mm-hmm. And I love it. It's really awesome, man. Plugin stuff is cool. It's blowing my mind, people.
And the final plugin is just some reverb. Again, convolution reverb, some pink noise played in a certain room or through a certain reverb pedal that sort of captures the characteristics of what happens in the frequency spectrum in certain situations. And I have no idea how to pronounce this word. Let's see. Schellingvoda. It looks German. That's the name of the room I'm using, I think.
Awesome.
I'll play without any of the processing and the cabinet, and processing without cabinet. With processing and cabinet and everything. And this is essentially my sound. And I have different, settings, but this is the sound that I gravitate to when I'm just playing by myself and want to hear like what I want to sound like. So yeah, like that's how I run it. If you'd like further breakdown, like I'm happy to give it to you. But yeah, I use plugins because, like Marcel said, I am cheap to a fault.
The other thing I would like to say before I forget, my newest discovery and thing that other people don't talk about a lot is picks. And I would encourage you to try these too, Lyman. I might even send some to you. But there's these new, well, I'll let you my journey. So I played Jazz 3 picks for a long time, as I'm sure some of us have. And I really liked those. And then eventually I started to just really hear like the plasticiness, and I don't know, it was okay. And then I tried like Eric Johnson Jazz 3, and those are a little bigger. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then after a while, I decided to go crazy, and I'm like, well, I'm going to try one of these, like, no, I remember now. See, I lied. The reason I got to the picks where Yngwie was key in this. So I saw Yngwie Malmsteen, and it was amazing. For one, I have the quick side note. That dude, every few minutes, he was kicking picks from his boot. Like, he would throw the pick in the air or just toss it and then kick it with the tip of his boot, and he never missed. Like, when I say never missed, I mean, I watched him dead on kick these picks like he's Pele. It was nuts. I couldn't believe it. I've never seen anybody do that. I don't know. He trained for that. Anyway, but I caught one. And when I got home, of course, I checked it out. And it was 2 millimeters thick, and I'd never played a pick that thick before. And I'm like, this is a little big, like the physical construction of it. It was sort of like the size of like maybe like a Fender pick, but just 2 millimeters. And that was pretty big, but I could tell that I liked that contact, and I started looking into it, and gypsy players play really thick picks, and they get that contact and get certain sound. So eventually, right after I started figuring all this out, Dunlop comes out with these, they call them the flow picks. And there's a few different kinds, but the John Petrucci one is just like it's a little bigger than a Jazz 3, but it's the only pick I've found that gets the most projection of tone, feels the best, and can work on electric and acoustic and get projected tones on both. And it sounds nuts, but I'd encourage you guys to try them, or just try a thicker pick that's 2 millimeters, because you might find for some people, some people still like thinner picks, but some people like me, like once I found 2 millimeter picks and really started using them, I can't go back because the solidness of the note. You have to understand, like, I'm playing on a Martin that's bowed to all heck, and the action is so high. And it's this pick that lets me up there. At least the notes don't sound all flimsy and like choked. It's still powerful. So I don't know. Something to think about is pick thickness. And even if you don't like 2 millimeters picks, just like take whatever size of pick you like and try it in a few different thicknesses. Because when I messed with that, I found what worked for me personally. And if I would have never done that, I wouldn't have found that. And I think some people would be surprised whether it be they like a thicker pick or a thinner pick, like what they might actually like. So I would highly encourage it. And that's a cheap thing to do, just go out and buy a bunch of different picks. Like, totally worth doing to find what feels best in your hand.
Or you could be Marcel and buy a $50 blue chip pick.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Not Spawn.
I want to see that. I want to know. I want to ask him, man. When we're both on here, I'm asking him all about that pick, people. Don't worry. I'm going to get all the deets. Because I have a mini pick collection. And if you ever want to lose money, go into the boutique pick world, and you'll wish you didn't, because they sound good. Like, you think, oh, come on. And then you try a nice pick, and it's like, okay, well, I guess this was worth $20. And then, like, those, man, some of them get nuts. But picks are worth exploring, though. And there's a lot of really good, affordable ones that just you might just like.
I'm currently using a green, I think they're Gator Grip Dunlop pick. It's 1.5 millimeters.
Nice.
And I'm using it because it was the pick that was sitting on my microwave. And I like it. Yeah, I like between like, I like 1 millimeter picks. I like 2 millimeter picks. And I do like the 1.5. So
yeah, they're all fun. It's sort of fun to, I kind of, see, now I'm going to have to go out and buy more picks because I don't have enough different sizes. Because sometimes it is fun to mix it up, or like, eventually I'd like to do this, but I even started considering having just a handful of picks with me of different kinds that I just like a handful. Because I started to notice with some of these different picks I had in different thicknesses, it's like, oh, I could imagine doing this more on this song. And then maybe on this song, I could have this. Like, I started to feel their strengths and weaknesses. And it's like, oh, maybe, when it comes down to it, picks are just different. And granted, I have one now that I like the most. But it's like other picks have different strengths. And it's cool to have a little variety sometimes.
Could you describe the shape of this? I don't know what it is. I found this under my laptop.
Ooh, that's a lot like the ones I like. So Dunlap, if you ever want, I can't use them so much now, they're small. That might be the Dunlap. They're like the 200 series of picks, the little black picks. There's like, that might be a 204 or 205. It might be different, but they're like a little smaller than Jazz 3, about Jazz 3 size. But the rounded version of those are the closest I've found to fingers. I have some of those. They sound just like fingers. Like it's creepy. Get those. I think, let me look at my things. Dunlap 204s. Like, yeah, I got a 204 right here. Let's see if I can even demonstrate it. So that's my finger. That was the pick. Now,
your finger sounded more like a pick than the pick.
I know, it's weird. My finger again. Here's the pick again. It's a little different, but not by much. Like the shape of the tone and the weird. It's weird. I don't know. God, picks are weird, people. Get into it. Get them. Try them. Get ones that feel weird. Get ones that got holes in them. Get ones with rubber on them. Do it all. Try them. I'm telling you, it's fun.
I don't like this round pick thing.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I'll put it back where I found it, and I'll find it again. I swear, I've had that pick for like 7 years. And like I always pick it up because I throw it somewhere. And then, oh, I wonder if I'll like this pick at this point. Nope. And then throw it again. It's followed me from Washington to Arizona. But yeah, maybe I don't think I'll ever get rid of it. I'll keep trying it to remind myself what I like. And the picks I like cost 12 cents.
Love it.
I don't like when they get that thing when they, wear down and they catch a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
But I've started like filing them.
You're one of the filers. See, that's good. I'm so lazy. I just get rid of it.
Again,
see, that's good.
Cheap to a fault.
Cheap to a fault. See, maybe next time I'm going to come back, I've almost tried to consider, especially these 2mm ones, I almost want to find a way when they get like that to file it and really buff it or make it really smooth again. It's like, But then again, it's like, what am I doing? I could just buy more picks. I don't know. But
the closest music store to me is like 20 miles away. So it's also like part, like, I don't want to get in my car and drive. I mean, I could buy picks on Amazon and have them delivered to my door. But yeah, like I'll usually just try to make do with what I got. Like that's my philosophy.
Definitely. And I would like to throw something in that you people might not know about this band. The way I view this band, and I try to incorporate more of this approach into the way I think about things too, is that I feel like working within certain limitations is sometimes a really good thing. And I've seen Lyman many times almost intentionally sometimes set out these limitations just to test himself. And it's awesome because this is not a musical example, but maybe some people can understand it. I'll be quick with it. Is that for me, one of my, I hope this makes sense to some people. One of the most interesting cartoons I think that ever existed was Ren and Stimpy. Now, why? Is because it's like if you look at all the shows that surrounded it, it took things to a different level, but they still were within these limitations. And it's fascinating to see, like, and there's lots of other examples, but like sometimes, making sure that you have like a healthy limitation is good because that same show, once they had all this creative freedom, they made Ren and Stimpy Adult Party. It was all terrible and awful. And they just, it's like there was no restraint. So I don't know, we're still talking about gear and stuff, but it's definitely food for thought to also make sure, because someone like me, I also can sometimes get a little too overzealous and I want to reach too far. I want something maybe a little too out of reach when it's like sometimes you need to know when to cut it off or when to like accept what you're working with and move forward. Because that is also a huge part of this. And that's something I've learned a lot from Lyman in particular, is just knowing when to make that decision about anything musical, but especially like gear and stuff too. Just knowing when's the point to stop like obsessing. That is equally important, because I used to do too much. And now I know it's like, once you find that balance, you'll start making better gains anyway in anything you're doing, because you'll be doing more and you'll be letting yourself move on. Because getting too obsessive about gear and tone is also, it is definitely a potential like trap as well. It's good to consider, but also don't get lost in it, because that is, yeah.
I got a story about limitations. I may have already told this on the podcast. I've already forgotten, but I was playing in the musical Rent, and
you played in Rent?
Yeah, I played bass for Rent.
I feel like you maybe told me that. How old were you?
Oh, I had to have been 20, so it was like 6 years ago. Marcel was actually playing drums in that musical.
Really? Was this like what kind of production was this? I want more details.
The WWU production of Rent.
Awesome.
And it was a lot of fun. This will be the first time I admit this publicly, but I had an Aquafina bottle full of vodka every night. Just getting slammed at these shows.
At like Rent Productions.
One of the reasons I don't drink anymore. But during one of the performances, I broke my G string right at the end of the first act.
What?
Yeah, and I got excited. I'm like, oh, time to test. Challenge accepted. Can I play the rest of this musical without my G string?
Oh man!
And naturally, I don't remember much.
Oh man!
So it could have been all right. It could have been awful, but I think the point of the story is I was excited to try.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. The approach is key. The approach is everything. And like in situations like that, I've had to learn that too. Like the difference between the real pros, and people that aren't, is like when something goes wrong, if you handle yourself with grace. Because you watch anybody that is an actual pro and they handle, like you can watch these terrible videos of like Mariah Carey from like a year ago. It's like the sound or something was off in this video and she's just like complaining and walking around. She won't even sing. And it's like, that's how she dealt with things going wrong. She's like, I'm just not going to do anything. And I'm just going to, like, if something's wrong, I have to stop. But when you soldier on, I don't know, learning to do that is really key, especially with gear. It's like that is inseparable from gear, is having to, on the fly, just accept something has changed and just roll with it. And the more you can, when those things happen, just like decide, because I feel like a lot of it is mental. Because again, I used to have bad problems. Like when things would go wrong, I would really get stressed out. But now I realize that is just being too stressed about equipment takes away from it. Because I started to think about, from an audience perspective, if they just see this dude that's just freaking out, they're having a good time and he is upset for no reason, like that's going to bum them out. So first and foremost, always remembering like what you're doing it for. Again, bringing it back to gear, because I'm someone who's gotten very lost on this many times, but the more I see that having that healthy balance is very important.
I have forgotten to talk about my most important piece of gear.
Ooh.
My makeshift fret wrap.
Ooh, yeah.
It's essentially what it is go Google fret wrap, and it's this little Velcro thing that you put around like the base of your neck, like before the first fret or like around the third fret. You can move it around, and it's to help like tapping. I'm getting no like overtones, like, and I can be a little bit sloppier with my tapping.
Whoa, I didn't know about the overtone thing. Whoa,
Yeah,
what?
Yeah, you're not getting any overtones on the other side.
What? okay, people, you have to understand, like, I've seen fret raps before. Not a single time did they ever make it clear to me that, like, I knew it just muted the strings, but that right there just sold me on the idea of at least having one layer on or something. That's cool. Oh, man.
Jeremiah always used to give me so much grief about, like, he called it my scrunchie.
I had no idea. Wow.
And like a lot of times, like when I'm playing bass, I'll use the fret rep, I'll bring it up and play a bass line. And like I'll be able to play a melody line with my right hand because I play in a 3-piece, rhythm guitar, bass, and drums and vocals. One of us sings. And to fill out the sound, I'll do a lot of left-hand bass work and a lot of filling out of the sound with my right hand. But my fret wrap is not, brand name. It's a hairband that I stole from my wife, and I'll sort of take it off and put it on, explain how I do it. It's what would you say the diameter is, like 6 inches?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
I'll fold it over to like cut the diameter in half. So there's 2 little loops. I'll put that over my neck and then I'll tie this little like knot. I'll put it through the loops, put it through different loops. And this is tongue in cheek that it's my most important piece of gear, but like to me and how I play, it's actually an extremely important piece of gear.
I could see that. Yeah, I had no idea. Like that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's actually important. And it's going to be super important for my next year 2-time-a-week project. If you don't know, I release 2 lo-fi hip-hop jazz-inspired tracks on Soundcloud, 2 a week. And I'm actually, like, I have all the tracks set until November, and I'm just taking my time on the final month. But I'm going to do it again next year, and this will be the official announcement. I will be attempting to release 2 math rock tracks a week in the year of 2019. And that means a lot of tapping. And the fret rap is going to help tremendously.
Oh, it's going to be savage. It's going to be so good. I'm more excited than anybody for this. So you heard it here first, people. It's coming. Math rock's coming, baby.
That's a, special little nugget treat to, anybody who makes it an hour into the podcast.
Yeah. Man, I'm still getting my head around the scrunchy thing. Like now I'm pretty much, it's like how once I get into tapping, which is inevitable at a certain point, how long do I stave off putting one of those on my guitar? Because now that I know about, like, I just didn't know about the overtone thing. That is, oh my God. Like, I want to just get a scrunchie immediately once we're done and just start messing around.
It's like, huge on the acoustic.
Oh my God. All right. Well, people, if I quit everything I'm doing and I turn into Andy McKee wannabe, I'm really sorry. Like, I tried to play like nice licks, try to play some blues, try to play some jazz. But it turns out my heart was tapping on the acoustic. Not really.
the ladies got to have some of these, right?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah. If there's a lady in your life, just go find one of these hairband things. They're stretchy, and just take them.
Just take it. They got plenty.
My wife actually only had 2, and I took both of them, and I wish she had more.
Savage, people. The things we do for music. Steal from our wife.
Yeah. I get just at least experiment with it, because another thing, like, I can play really, really sloppy and like not mute the other strings. I can pick through and not have to worry about, what my thumb's doing, what my other fingers are doing to mute everything.
And I imagine that'd make the legato a little better too.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Try it, please. You think I'm crazy now until you try it.
Yep.
It is a little tongue-in-cheek that it's my most important piece of gear, but it's my most important piece of gear. Oh man. As far as reoccurring segments, I think we're out of time.
Yeah.
Any more stuff about gear? Just final thoughts?
Well, my final thoughts would be that I hoped that I was helpful, because this is actually one of the things hopefully I can be helpful on, but really just follow your sound more than anything. Follow your sound, be comfortable. And those things are things that I will never, ever devalue the importance of ever again. And I highly suggest you just make those at the foremost, that you're comfortable, you're happy, and mostly that you want to play music. Because if you don't want to play, that's a problem. But if your instrument makes you want to play, nailed it.
And to piggyback off of that, I feel like that might feed into a little bit of the gear acquisition syndrome. Like, you're always going to be chasing that gear dragon. But if you have a solid instrument that you love to play, and if you're even fortunate enough to have two solid instruments that you love to play, you can always swap back and forth and get inspired all over again.
And my other thing I would suggest, with a slight caution before we go, is don't be afraid to adjust your guitars. People are really scared to adjust things, but that's how you learn. The more you start, like, all right, I'm going to make my action a little lower, or I'm going to make it a little higher, or like maybe the neck needs a little tightening, just a little bit, or like maybe these pickups need to be raised or lowered. Like, once you start doing that, you start getting more in tune with your instrument, and you'll probably find a few little things that, like, oh, I just like this better, if you've never messed with that stuff before. So don't be afraid. That's a huge thing, because especially if your instrument's not even like that expensive, like, oh man, do anything to it. Have fun.
A word of warning, like, just start with small adjustments.
Oh, definitely.
Always start small. But yeah, I do all of my own setup. I've even filed a nut or two in my day. And like, I'm just trying to get the guitar to the point where I enjoy having my hands on it. And I feel like I've done that with all the instruments I have. And it's cool to like adjust to something you're not used to see if you even like it. I thought I liked super low action, but I'm finding I like kind of a mid-level a lot of the time. Not super high, but not so low that I can't really, dig in. But yeah, adjusting is, I recommend it with caution. Like, always look up a tutorial or two.
Oh, definitely. The internet is a great resource. Definitely. In anything with any wiring, anything, always make sure you're careful. But yeah, internet's a good tool.
And don't use a soldering iron unless you know how. Like, I don't want to hear about anybody burning their house down.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But like screws and nuts and like tightening and loosening stuff, like that's all stuff. Like, if you're careful, it's hard to mess up. Might strip a screw here and there, but look up tutorials and try to learn as much as you can about the instrument you have and how to do maintenance on it yourself.
Precisely.
Because for somebody like me who's cheap and does not like to leave the house, like, that's perfect. Like, Unless something is seriously wrong, I don't have to take my guitar to an outside source to get something on it changed.
It's the way to be.
Trying to think if I have any more points to make about gear. I take the if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach, but like you should always experiment and try new things. Just taste everything, see what's out there. And like Miles said, chase your sound. Like try to be the best you can be.
Mm-hmm.
I think with that, it's time for closing remarks. Miles, where can the people find you? And also, I heard like some of your buddies that you're involved with have an album coming out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. Well, I am in Baby Cakes. If people ever want to check that out. We have an Instagram. We got a Facebook, I'll say when I'm playing, where I'm playing. And I also have my own Instagram that I don't post on much, but I'm going to start to get tongue-tied first. But I should be posting more musical things here in the future. And that's just Miles of Miles. There it is. Miles_of_Miles. That's where you'll find me playing guitar. And I hope to see you all at gigs. Hope to see you on the internet. Thanks for having me again. And I hope to come back and ask Marcel all about his fancy picks.
Yeah. My name is Lyman Lipke. You can find me at lymanlipke.com. For Marcel, you can find him at lessonswithmarcel.com. We run the Jazz and Grass Instagram page together, which is a new lick every weekday with 2 on Fridays because we fear odd numbers. And that's alternating between a jazz lick and a bluegrass lick. If you would like to send us an email like Mr. Peter did, which was awesome, you can reach us at jazzandgrass@gmail.com. And if you would like to call or text, you can find us there. Just call or text area code 724-257-1046. That's area code 257. I screwed it up. Area code 724-257-1046. And yeah, I think that's a podcast. If I forgot anything, Marcel will yell at me later.